Here we go, College Football Payoff Podcast. We are in week 9, so this is episode 10. Episode overall?
Episode 47.
47, creeping up on 50.
Yep.
All right, that's Big Country. I'm Dan. We are back again this week after another positive week for the pod. Both of us went 2-1. That's 4-2 together. I'm 19-13 overall. Big Country, I have it 16-11 overall.
Yep.
So that makes the podcast a 35-24 positive podcast.
5-1 run.
5-1 run.
Yes.
Whew. Oh, and I forgot, I do have to give a shout out. We got a listener who texts me. It's my brother. But he texts me every week, gives me his picks, and I do have to give him a shout out because he said, me and Big Country are the same. I said, why is that? He said, I went 3-0, he went 3-0. So
did he take my picks?
He did take your pick. He took 2 of your picks.
Okay.
But he's on a little run too, so I got to give it a shout out to Will. He's following the pod, he's sharing with his buddies, and he's positive this year. So
shout out to Will.
There we go. All right, just give a quick recap. Last week, was there any major stories in college football? I don't think there was there?
I mean, nothing crazy.
Oh, yeah, because the SEC was on their typical
bye week,
middle of the season FCS
Cupcake
bye week
game. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. All right, just quick recap for us then. Last week, winners were Texas -6.5, Eastern Michigan +2.5, and then my loss was James Madison. I just took a flyer on them. I thought James Madison would come out firing, but you win some, you lose some with teams like that. So not too concerned with that one. What was your recap?
2-1 last week. Duke +9 was a win. They won outright. Kansas State TCU over 54. That one was really easy. And my one loss was Boston College Wake Forest, and I had the over 61. They got to 58. So
yeah,
tough.
That's tough. All right, let's jump right into it. I mean, we're recording a day late. Circumstances arise, but day late, so we're going to get this recorded, get it out so that we can get the picks. But one thing that does for us is, and we're not going to try to do this every week. We want to get it out as early as we can, but waiting the extra day, I was able to get an updated line on one of my games, at least one of my games, that swung in my favor. So sometimes that's how the chips fly. I'm going to pull up actually my odds, my updated odds real quick, and then we can get started. You want me to start, or do you want to take the lead? What are you feeling?
How many do you have today?
I got 3.
Well, I'm going to let you start.
All right.
Today.
Okay, let me pull this up, and that should do it. All right, so I'll start first off with the Ohio State-Penn State game. This one I really don't need to look into what the spreads change or what they're not changed, whatever it is. I had it at 15.5. It's actually down to 14.5, so that helps me. We're going to take Ohio State -14.5 against Penn State. I feel like I have a pretty good tell on Ohio State this year. Their defense, I mean, some people who watch Ohio State look at the defense, and I don't know if maybe it's just like fans, but they think they're supposed to stop everyone every single play, not give up yards. And I've actually heard people say, well, Ohio State's defense hasn't improved. That's the farthest thing from the conclusion there has ever been. Ohio State's defense has gotten so much better. I mean, they're stopping people. They're not giving up the big plays. They're not giving up a lot of points. Yeah, last week was against Iowa. It's against probably one of the worst offenses of all time in college football. I mean, the first play of the game for Iowa, they basically completed a pass directly to Ohio State. I think at one point that dude he completed 3 passes and had 2 interceptions, and it was like the second quarter. So we knew Iowa wasn't going to score. But the big test in that game and the big takeaway from that game is Ohio State's offense still able to put up points against a fantastic, one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the country in Iowa. The first few drives, it did look like it looked like Stroud was scared. I think I think what happens with C.J. Stroud, he's not scared of what teams are going to do to him. I think he kind of gets the notion in his head that he kind of puts teams on a pedestal. So everyone's talking about how good Iowa's defense is. That's all we heard about. Iowa's defense. Yeah, they're fantastic. I think Stroud lets that get to his head a little bit. And I think that's why he kind of looked timid in the beginning of that game. But they were still able to settle down, still able to score points. And when you have, we saw Jackson Smith and Jigba for maybe a series, and then he went out. I don't think we see Jackson Smith and Jigba this week. That hamstring keeps flaring up. But we had Joel Klatt talking the entire game about, he said it multiple times, that he thinks Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the best wide receiver in the NFL in 5 years. Now, for Joel Klatt to say that about a guy not once but twice, and not just say college football, but the NFL, and then he came out and just made some ridiculous catches. Stroud needs to settle down. He can feed not Smith and Jigba, he can feed Harrison, Julian Fleming, his tight end, and then you have a two-headed monster running back combo. Offense is fine. I think the defense is just it's clicking right now. As long as we don't find a way to let them get up to our secondary with the passing, which Tommy Eichenberg, linebacker, was able to get in and sack a few times, I think their defense is not going to have a problem. Penn State struggles to move the ball. We see it. I think it was week 1 against Purdue. They threw in that true freshman quarterback from Medina, big boy. If they throw him in this game, I think it makes it a little bit tougher on Ohio State's defense. But, Penn State's only loss was against Michigan. I just don't think that they have enough firepower on the offensive side of the ball to move the ball, and I don't think their defense is going to be able to stop C.J. Stroud and all of the weapons he has. They have I think just one guy is ruled out, so no real injuries plaguing Penn State. And this also is not the whiteout game. Usually when Ohio State plays, they make it the whiteout. They used that last week. I don't think it's going to be that hostile of an environment. I think this is a noon game, right? Let's see. Yeah, this is a noon kick. It's still a tough place to play, one of the biggest stadiums in the country. But the Buckeyes, they tend to put up 50-plus points, and they tend to get their second stringers in the fourth quarter as much as anybody. They're going to be able to move the ball at will. I think they're going to be able to stuff Penn State. Penn State's defense is going to be on the field for too long. I think that kind of hinders them a little bit, makes them tired. And when you have Penn State trying to throw the ball, we know that their quarterbacks, they have issues at quarterback. I just think it could be a bad day for Penn State. I think Ohio State wins this one easy. It's at 14.5 now, so take with that what you will. When I looked at it this morning, it was at 15.5, so it's already down a point.
It's already down again.
14.5 now. So I'll take Ohio State minus 14.5.
I don't think that's going to 13.5.
It won't.
Probably the best line you get.
Yeah, so Ohio State 14.5, I think that's pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah, James Franklin has always coached pretty well against the Buckeyes, but this is just a pretty down year for them. So, I can't take Penn State here. So I'll probably be rocking with the Buckeyes too.
There we go.
All right, my first pick of the week. I'm going to go take a look at an ACC matchup here with a pretty fishy line, but we're going to take the bait. I'm going to take Wake Forest minus 3.5 this week at Louisville. I am the leader of the Sam Hartman fan club. I love this guy. He, so far in the year, he's just been killing it. He has 1,755 passing yards and a 21-3 touchdown to interception ratio. They had a pretty easy week last week. They beat Boston College 43-15. No problem there. And then the week before they beat Army 45-10. So they've been able to. I feel like they haven't had too much impact or too much harm done to them. They're probably staying pretty healthy here. The injury report's pretty clean. And I'm not a non-believer in this Louisville team. I think Scott Satterfield is definitely still in the hot seat, and I think when he gets blown out, during this game, I think they might be looking to fire him before the end of the season. Louisville has been a pretty big disappointment to what their expectations were this year. They came out and lost to Syracuse, which ended up being a pretty good loss, but they've lost this year to teams like Boston College. And honestly, Louisville hasn't played a worthy opponent in over a month. So, I mean, the last time they played a worthy opponent was September 16th against Florida State, where they did lose at home. They then proceeded to go play South Florida, Boston College, Virginia, and Pitt, going 3-1 over that span. So I know they're feeling themselves a little bit, but I think once they play a real team again and get punched in the mouth, they're going to realize, like, oh, wait, this is who we are. And even though this line, I figure it's low because it's at Louisville. Nothing's really sticking out to me, but I just really like Sam Hartman. I think Wake Forest can run up the score on them. And, I think they win by a touchdown plus, so I can easily go with Wake Forest. On top of that, Louisville's leading passer and rusher, Malik Cunningham, has had a pretty disappointing year. He's got a 5.4 touchdown to interception ratio. He's just pretty much underwhelmed all over the field as a passer. He is their leading rusher with 500 yards, but, I mean, to me, that just tells me that Wake Forest, who does have a relatively weak defense from a national perspective, but an upper tier defense from an ACC perspective, will be able to just focus on him, shut him down, and not run into too many problems. So no matter whether it's Sam Hartman running the offense pretty efficiently through the air or just handing the ball off all game, I feel pretty good about this Wake Forest -3.5.
Nice. Yeah. I'll roll with you on that. I'm starting to like Sam Hartman a little bit more each week. Okay. So let's go here. So this is a game where, again, the start of the day, it was a pick 'em. And right now it moved to basically my favor. I was taking Oklahoma State. Right now it's Oklahoma State plus 1.5. But I'm also going to give you another little nugget here, which I don't know if I'm actually going to go with Oklahoma State plus 1.5 or if I'm going to take the over 56 in this. Reason being, these are two teams, right? So the reason that I'm leaning Oklahoma State is momentum and partially who's going to be the quarterback for Kansas State. Now, momentum-wise, Oklahoma State, okay, they lost 2 weeks ago, double overtime to TCU. That's fine. They came back the next week, and they beat Texas. They were unranked. They beat Texas, who was 20th ranked. At home, they were a 7-point dog. They beat them by 7. That's their biggest win. So right now, and by the way, that was a shootout, 500 total yards each team, and Oklahoma State was able to convert on third downs. So Oklahoma State's kind of riding high right there. Kansas State, they actually blew a lead against that TCU team. Yeah, it was on the road, but it was last week. So both teams have lost to TCU. I think one team's trending up, the other one's kind of low, and the reason that Kansas State might be on the low end is because Adrian Martinez, they had to play that game without Adrian Martinez. He left the game in the first quarter. He played 2 series. He was out, undisclosed injury. What I read was day-to-day, so, I've seen reports of he's day-to-day. He's not on the injury list. Who knows what that is? But the two quarterbacks in this game, you got Adrian Martinez, Kansas State, major running threat, right? One of the best running quarterbacks. Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders, one of the best arms in college football. Last week against Texas, I think he was 34 for 57, close to 400 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he's having a fantastic last few games. So right now you have two quarterbacks that are going to be basically dual opposites of each other. And because Adrian Martinez is kind of up in the air, we don't know if he's going to play. He'll play, but we don't know where he's going to be at with his running game. That's why I start to lean towards Oklahoma State. You give me another 1.5 with that, then I'm definitely going Oklahoma State. But both defenses are pretty bad. I don't think these defenses are going to be able to stop one another. And the total being at 56, I think there's going to be 60-plus points scored in this game. So I'm also going with the over. I think for the pod, I don't know what this is it. So I'm going to stick with the Oklahoma State plus 1.5 as my pod pick.
Okay.
Now, if you're kind of paying attention to this game and you see maybe Friday or Saturday morning, this game's at 3 o'clock, so Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, whatever it is, if you see that any type of news on Adrian Martinez being not 100%, then that bodes well for us. But if he's up there and they say the playbook's open, then I'm taking the over as well.
Right.
So, but for the official pod pick, we're going to go Oklahoma State plus 1.5.
Nice. Okay. Big Country number 2 pick of the week. I'm going to look at a Big Ten game here. It's an ugly game. A lot of you won't have to watch it or won't want to watch it, but the good thing is you won't have to. You'll just have to put this bet in and hopefully cash the ticket later. And we're going to go with the Northwestern Iowa game. I was thinking about going under here. I think it was around 37.5 when I was looking at it earlier today. But I do not trust Northwestern's offense enough to not give up not one but possibly 2 touchdowns to this Iowa defense. So, man, I think this Iowa defense could cover the 11 by itself possibly on Saturday. So when we look at Northwestern, their offense is just like even worse than Iowa's. and that's really hard to say. Northwestern's offense is second to last in the country in turnovers. They are 118th in points scored. They're 101st in rushing yards. They just really don't know how to move unless they're passing the ball on a weak passing defense, and you're just not going to find that against Iowa. So, Northwestern's either not going to be able to move the ball or they are going to throw picks all game. That's just how I feel. I like Iowa to cover the 11 because I don't think Northwestern scores more than a touchdown. Maybe
I think Iowa. I think Iowa even gets you a defensive touchdown.
Right, I think too. So
yeah, a couple.
Yeah, and Iowa's offense is dead last in total yards in the country. So it's not like they can move the ball too well, but I think they'll have some pretty short field position here. I don't see Northwestern moving the ball at all. And on top of that, Northwestern's defense is 111th out of 131 in the country in rushing yards allowed. So I just think if Iowa can't throw the ball, which we know they can't, just hand the ball off all game, get us 2 touchdowns, and we're good here. So quick analysis, but I think Northwestern's at the point where they want to give up on the year. They know how bad they are at 1-6. And Iowa actually still has a chance of making a bowl game, even with one of the worst offenses in the country. At least Iowa has something to fight for, and it's at home for them. I'm thinking Iowa minus 11. Lock it up. Let's give me some points, Spencer Petrus.
Yeah, that's like Ferentz. That's Ferentz football for you. He's just going to run the ball. I did like their defense was solid last week.
Their defense is great,
Iowa,
yeah.
Jesus, man. But when I turned on their offense in that very first play, he threw that ball to an Ohio State guy, and it was nowhere to be found. I'm like, yeah.
Iowa just needs to keep the ball on the ground and let your defense do the work. You can cover this 11.
And Iowa has probably the best special teams in that conference. Their field goal kicker's phenomenal, and their punter is unreal.
Right.
For some reason, he tried a fake punt last week, but, man, he downs people deep in their territory.
They're going to win the field position game.
Yeah.
So, I feel good about that. And didn't they score a defense touchdown last week against Ohio State?
Yep, they had Stroud. They stripped Stroud. Wow, that's tough to say.
See, if they
stripped Stroud at like his 10 and picked it up, easy walk-in touchdown. They actually had the lead at that point, I think it was.
Yeah, if they can score one against Ohio State on defense, they can possibly score 2 against Northwestern. So I'm ready to lock that one in.
Perfect. Okay. All right, my third final game. We're going to talk about TCU West Virginia. So I mentioned, and this line hasn't moved. It's still TCU minus 7.5. I mentioned in my last game with Oklahoma State and Kansas State, they both lost to TCU. So in this game, we're going to talk about TCU's. They're one of 6 remaining undefeated FBS teams. Okay. Last week in that game against Kansas State, they were down 28-10 halfway through the second quarter. They woke up, scored 28 unanswered, outgained Kansas State 495 to 390, and won the turnover battle 2-0 or 2-0. I don't know why I just said it 2-0. 2-0. So let's talk about this. TCU's offense is actually 3rd in the country with 44.7 points per game and over 520 yards per game. And they're not just one-sided either. They're balanced. They're 12th in rushing. They put up 225 rushing yards a game. 20th with passing. Max Dugan is actually 10th in the country. He's got 85.5 QBR, 19 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's got a running back behind him, Kendre Miller, 731 yards. That's 6.1 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns. Their defense, they give up like 26 a game, which is good for 70th. They do give up close to 400 yards a game, which is about 90th. But their offense is legit. I mean, they've been able to knock off everybody in their conference. They're undefeated right now. Flip the script to West Virginia. Okay, we were talking before we got on. You said you can't bet with West Virginia right now.
Not this week, yeah.
Right. So West Virginia, it's been tough sledding for them. We all know that opening game to Pittsburgh, tough game to lose 38-31. They lost their conference opener at home to Kansas in overtime, 55-42. Then they had their cakewalk with Towson. They beat Virginia Tech. That looked like a good win. But then they dropped to 0-2 in the Big 12. They lost to Texas 38-20. And then last week, just a terrible loss to Texas Tech, 48-10. Was that at home?
That was away.
Okay, yeah. But they, losing 48-10 at Texas Tech. In that game, Texas Tech outgained West Virginia 594 to 282, 3 turnovers to nothing. It was just tough for West Virginia, and I think right now you got a team that is trying to get their footing and a team that's just flying high, and they feel like they can win every game in TCU. Going down by 18, coming back to score 28 unanswered says a lot to your offense, a lot to your team. I do like JT Daniels, but sometimes he's just he's too inconsistent. So West Virginia, having lost 3 of their 4 Big 12 games this year by at least 13 points, and TCU's offense ranked 5th in the nation with 7 yards per play. That's just behind Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee, and Oregon. Oregon's kind of your outlier there, but Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, 1, 2, 3, and then you got TCU. I think TCU is going to come out fast. They're going to score early. They're going to score a lot. West Virginia's defense is 113th in the nation. They allow 6.3 yards per play. That's bad. When West Virginia has the ball, it's a little bit more of an even matchup. You got 78th ranked offense per play in West Virginia, 76th per play in TCU's defense. But I think on the road here, TCU's offense is just going to be the biggest difference. I think they win by a couple touchdowns, and I think Max Duggan continues to have a good year. I think TCU rolls. They stay undefeated, and it's just going to be a tough week for West Virginia. So third and final pick, TCU minus 7.5 against West Virginia.
Okay. For my last pick, we're going to go to probably the best SEC game this weekend. We're going to look at the Florida-Georgia game, where I am ultimately going to go under right off the bat here, under 56.5. Pretty self-explanatory. Anthony Richardson only plays well against bad defenses. There's only been one game all year where he's gone. I mean, he did throw for 453 yards in the game. That was against Tennessee, but their defense is really weak. Outside of that, he hasn't thrown for more than 200 yards against a single FBS opponent. Everybody's talking about him being the Heisman front runner, week 1 or 2 of the season after they go out and beat Utah. But they're just, man, that hype fizzled out quick after listening to Kentucky, and they've never really been the same since. Billy Napier does not have that defense in shape whatsoever. They're 112th in the nation of yards allowed per game and 115th with rushing yards allowed. On the other side of the ball, Georgia's the second-ranked offense in the country right now, or the second-ranked in total yards. I see Georgia just being able to get up early here and running the ball out while their defense that's allowed less than 10 points a game this season holds Florida to 2 touchdowns max. I see that there's a pretty strong possibility that this game could go 42-14. I think that half point is really important, but more times than not, I see this game going under 56.5. That's all I really got to say. Georgia's defense is 5th in the country defending the pass, while Florida's offense is 93rd in the country throwing the ball. We know Florida's not going to be able to run it down Georgia's throats. So, I just see this as probably a slow, sloppy game. And if Georgia gets up quick, I think they're just going to want to get out of there. Kirby Smart already doesn't like the fact that this is a neutral site game. This game is played in Jacksonville, which I guess is pretty central between Athens and Gainesville. Mm-hmm. But I think all he wants to do is get this win real quick and get off the field. So even if Georgia does put up 40-plus points, I think it's possible that we still stay under the 56.5 here. I feel really good with Florida, Georgia under 56.5.
Love it. All right, man. There we go. We got our 3 each. Should be pretty good, man. So let me recap mine real quick, and then we'll let you recap. Then we'll hit them with the socials, and we'll get out of here. I got Ohio State minus 14.5 against Penn State. Watch that line. I don't think it drops any lower than that. It was at 15.5 this morning, Thursday. It's at 14.5 now. So Ohio State minus 14.5. TCU minus 7.5 against West Virginia. And then I got Oklahoma State. They're at plus 1.5 right now. They were a pick-em earlier today. Oklahoma State plus 1.5. And then my third unofficial pick for this year. I am 2-0 on unofficial picks. Third unofficial pick, the over 56 in that Oklahoma State-Kansas State game. And that is going to ride on Adrian Martinez and how much he's going to play.
Perfect. All right, Big Country Week 9 card. Wake Forest minus 3.5 at Louisville. Iowa minus 11 hosting the
Wildcats.
FCS wannabe Northwestern Wildcats. And we're going to go the, what's the cocktail party or whatever is that what the game's called with the Georgia and Florida?
I think, yeah,
World's
it is.
Greatest Cocktail Party or something like that.
Florida?
Yeah. So we're going to go under 56.5 with that.
Yeah, it's got to be.
16-11 on the year, 5-1 run. Let's go 3-0 this week and extend that.
Hell yeah, let me... Because that's going to drive me crazy. I got to make sure. World's largest outdoor cocktail party. Good call.
Too many words.
It is. You just say the cocktail party.
Yeah.
That's good. All right.
Follow Dan on Twitter at dposk13. Follow me at Big Country Bets. Follow the pod and tweet at us at CFP_pod. You got anything to say? You haven't given us a college football player in a couple weeks.
Oh, damn. While I'm giving you that, let me remind everyone we need to subscribe, follow, find us wherever you get your podcasts. iTunes, Spotify,
Stitcher.
Yes.
Overcast.
All right.
Pandora.
There you go.
Buzzsprout.
And then reach out to us. I know he's my brother, but it was pretty cool hearing someone come out and say, hey, I went 3-0, so did Big Country. And I'm like, damn, that's pretty damn cool. All right, let me see. This is tough. Do I go? This is tough, man.
You want me to give one?
Do you have one?
I could just come up with one.
Who?
Stephon Diggs from Maryland University.
Maryland
Or University of Maryland. My bad.
Okay.
Wait,
There-
no, we could do better than that.
I
I just
mean-
like Stephon Diggs as a college player. Let's go with Dennis Dixon, former quarterback from Oregon.
Oregon, yeah.
Yes.
I like that. Well, what about, I can't say his last name, Tim Biakabatuka. I got his
Did you
name
go
right.
to Texas or something? Where'd he go?
Michigan.
Michigan?
8th overall pick in 96.
Nice.
There we go. We gave you 2 because I haven't given that, but thanks for contributing to that. I was running blanks. All right, man. Well, that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, I'm good. Let's catch some tickets.
All right, cool. That's Big Country. I'm Dan. We will see you next week.